Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. We are heading up from Vancouver on the Trans-Canada Highway, up through the Fraser Canyon area, a steep, wicked canyon, and we'll take the big tram down into the bottom of the canyon. And we'll hear the story of the gold rushes up there, and about the sturgeon and the salmon fish that inhabit that area, and the gold rushes and how they led to the formation of Canada. And even a story about some camels up that way. Come on, we're rolling. We will spend most of the time on the highlight of the trip, a ride on this gondola down into a place on the mighty Fraser River called Hell's Canyon, and with good reason. There were two famous explorers and fur traders in Canadian history that came down the Fraser River. The Fraser River starts up around Mount Robson in British Columbia near the national park called Jasper, just over the Alberta border. And the black line of the river flows to the Prince George area, then swings south and goes through Hell's Gate that we talked about. Swings a little bit further south around Hope, BC today, and then turns westward toward Vancouver and the Pacific Ocean. Now, Alexander Mackenzie, interesting that Alexander Mackenzie and Simon Fraser both came from the north. They did not come from the ocean upstream in the river. They came from the north because the fur trade was stronger in the north, and that's where the action was back in those days. So they came from the north downstream. And Alexander Mackenzie got partway down here in the river, and the local Indians said, you better not continue downstream. There's a canyon down there, and you will not survive it. If your goal is to see the Pacific Ocean, swing west about at this point and follow an old, well-used for generation Indian trail westward to the Pacific Ocean, and you'll come out at a place called Bella Coola. Mackenzie was the first person to travel overland in North America to reach the Pacific Ocean. 15 years later, Simon Fraser also paddled downstream and got through the rapids by carrying his canoes over a series of bridges and ladders built by local Indian people. Rapids were named when Fraser wrote, "Surely we have encountered the gates of hell." Today, hell is a great tourist attraction. The Fraser is one of the world's centers for two iconic fish, sturgeon and salmon. Sturgeon can live to be 100 years old and have been known to like to be scratched and petted. Adults have no teeth and suck up dead salmon, insects, and fish eggs, and things like that on the bottom of the water. Both salmon and sturgeon eggs are eaten by people as a delicacy called caviar. Sturgeon meat is very rich and is naturally a gray color, but people prefer a red color, so chemicals are put in the meat to change the color, making it appear more appetizing. Sturgeon date back nearly 200 million years in the world and are the most common fish in the river. These living dinosaurs are nothing like the size they once were, but they are still big, big boys. These fish are found in waters throughout the world. The largest sturgeon caught in the Fraser River measured 3.5 meters long, and the distance around its body, its girth, was 1.5 meters. So take a rope and measure out this in your living room, but you might have to move some of the living room furniture back to the wall. The other great fish in the Fraser are salmon, and the numbers are reasonably healthy because Canada has not allowed dams to be built on the main stream of the Fraser, and salmon therefore have maintained their natural and essential migration from birth and migration to and from the sea. In contrast, salmon habitat in the Columbia River Basin has been largely destroyed by 60 dams with only 8 fish ladders, and 18 dams on the main stream of the river, combined with an unbelievable number, 150 hydroelectric projects and 250 water reservoirs that have destroyed fish habitat. I'm no fisherman, so I'm not sure if these fish are trout or salmon, but they're still fish, but we are talking salmon. Climate change, less water and warming water, combined with overfishing and human destruction of habitat, has devastated salmon on the Columbia. The Fraser River salmon have escaped some of this destruction, but not without a fight. The deep, narrow Fraser Canyon is an ideal place for a dam. There was a move in the 1970s to dam the canyon, which would have made the largest hydroelectric project in North America, with a backwater that would have backed up as far as the city of Quesnel, 500 kilometers away. The proposal was defeated, leaving the Fraser River one of the most productive salmon fisheries in North America. It's a great place to visit today. Well, we finally made it. We're at the Fraser Canyon. It's called Hell's Gate because it would be hell to try to navigate these waters. The tram arrived to take our descent into the canyon. We took the tram down Hell's Gate to the water level here on the Fraser River, and we walked across that little bridge. She was one exciting ride. Just a great experience. They had 2 trams running. Definitely a bird's eye view. Once off the tram, we walked across this little bridge a little closer to the water level. Both the Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railways squeezed in along each side of the walls of the canyon. You wouldn't want to see a derailment in a place like this. Here is an oil train going into a tunnel designed to protect the rail line from avalanches and snow slides. It's a crowded place. Can you imagine an oil train derailment here? They'd be drinking and bathing in oil all the way to Vancouver. There are a few eating places and tourist shops built into the side of the canyon. You could pan for gold. This was a stove used by immigrant Chinese workers who helped build railways all across the West. And this is building tunnels and railway in the early days. This is a picture from the early 1960s, continual work and maintenance. The tram arrived to pick us up, and we rode back up to the highway level. Back on the highway, the rail line was always nearby. You can see the train just above the tracks there. And truck traffic was always present, so you had to go slow and wait your time on the 2-lane highway. Here you can make out highway construction workers high above the highway scraping and stabilizing the rock cliffs above. Nets kept rocks from falling down onto the highway. Dangerous work. Like all roads in the mountains, maintenance work is a continual thing. There was a tunnel or two that made the drive even more exciting. The pursuit of furs was the initial reason for exploring this country, but it was the discovery of gold that brought in big numbers of people. BC had about three major gold rushes, and they all happened about the same time, just a few years apart. The first gold rush occurred only 10 years before Canada was declared a country from Britain, and American prospectors poured in by the thousands to claim the gold. The first gold rush occurred right here in the Fraser Canyon, and 2 or 3 or 4 years later, the Cariboo gold rush occurred, and then a few years later, the Wild Horse gold rush occurred. The first gold rush occurred right here at the Fraser Canyon, not too far from Vancouver. And then the Cariboo gold rush further north up the highway today. And the third gold rush, the Wild Horse, occurred in the southeastern part of the province near the city of Cranbrook today. Look how quickly the gold rushes led to Confederation, or the forming of Canada. The Fraser Canyon gold rush was quickly followed by the Cariboo gold rush only 3 years later. And 3 years after that, the Wild Horse gold rush. And 2 years after those gold rushes, BC was declared a colony, a British colony. And 1 year later, Confederation, the formation of the country. Canada became a country from sea to sea to sea, not because of the money that the gold rushes brought in. It was seeing the onslaught of gold-crazy American gold seekers with their guns and disrespect for law and people that created Canada. There became a realization that Canada would be better off forming its own country. The gold rushes provided the wheels toward Confederation, and promise of a railway across Canada to BC was the icing on the cake that sealed the deal. Earlier on the Fraser River, gold seekers from as far away as China came, and many thousands more traveled north from the U.S., armed with picks, shovels, and guns. American prospectors had little patience with local Indian complaints of being overrun, and quickly conflict occurred. U.S. miners formed military companies and battled the Indians, frequently killing men, women, and children. As a result, British and future Canadian interests declared sovereignty over the BC area to counteract and stop the violence against Native people by the American miners. It is more moist in the lower part of the Fraser River. At Hope, where the river turns and flows west to Vancouver, the mountains are quite high, and it is a great tourist stop to see the old tunnels that were carved out for the early railways. Nets again are used to prevent rocks from falling on you. As you drive north toward the canyon, the land is dry, and somebody got the idea in the early days that using camels as pack animals would be better than horses. A couple dozen camels were brought in for a short time only. One problem was that the rough, rocky ground hurt the camels' soft feet. Boots were made for them, but it really didn't work. Also, camels terrified the horses, and horse drivers on the trail quickly complained. Some camels were just let go to fend for themselves. Some were shot, some were fed as a grizzly meat specialty at a hotel. There's a bridge in Lillooet today called the Bridge of the 23 Camels. It was an experiment that did not work. But it is another great story of the Fraser River. The American Army ran some tests on which was the better pack animal, horses or mules or camels, and they learned the hard way. I'll tell you that story in another video. You can find it in the Arizona playlist of my channel on YouTube. And in the meantime, we're rolling on down the highway. Hit the subscribe button. That'll tell you when we're putting more videos on the internet. Until then, we're rolling. Adios for now. To find more of my videos, just do what it says on the bottom there. Google at Don Barnett 5090. Click my name and then hit the word playlists in the middle of the page and scroll down. Each playlist contains several travel videos.